Hi everybody, welcome to the first live video of 2021 from the Northern Affinity. I'm delighted today that we're going to be speaking all about outsourcing in business. I'm sure it's something that a lot of people watching this have either experienced, they are either involved in outsourcing themselves, or maybe even thinking about it for them and their business as well. I think it's going to be becoming bigger and bigger, especially what's happened in the last year or so for many people. So today I've got a few different people on. We're going to kind of talk about the benefits, the negatives, how it works, how it can work well, and all that kind of stuff. As usual, we're on our various social media platforms. So if you are on there, or whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or YouTube page, feel free to put any comments in. Love to kind of hear your thoughts or ask any questions you have as well, for us to try and answer. So we'll kind of move on. What I'll do first is kind of ask the guys to introduce themselves, kind of who they are, what they do, and kind of a little bit about where outsourcing is relevant for them. So we'll kind of go around the screen. And Sarah, are you okay to kind of introduce yourself first?
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
So I'm Sarah. As you can see, I run ADigitalMe, and I personally I'm an online business manager, and I've got a team of virtual assistants, VAs, who back up all business owners and our clients. So we are the outsourcers. We are the people that clients outsource to. I personally have a massive passion for taking the business out of business owners' heads and putting it into processes and systems that allow them to grow. And then my team can then continue to hold the business owners' hands and manage those tasks for them on a day-by-day and week-by-week basis. So that's a little bit about me. I've got a lot of experience with being the person or the people that businesses outsource to. So hopefully I'll be able to bring a little bit of that into our discussion.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. That's fantastic. Chris, if I can come to you, if that's all right.
I'm Chris Parker. I'm from Combined Minds, Continual Improvement Consultancy. So I guess I am an outsourced continual improvement manager, project manager. So I will help businesses to, that haven't got a continual improvement champion or manager within their organisation to actually do a probably similar to what Sarah does on a slightly bigger scale and really put some efficiency in there and help them to manage through it. With a lot of strategic tools, techniques, and some problem solving that helps them carry on and do things nice and smoothly.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. And last, definitely not least, Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Roberts from Saldi. Saldi is an outsourced sales function. So we would act as an extension of or a replacement for an in-house sales team. Quite new to the business because I was made redundant last August through COVID, and launched the business in September, but I've been in sales for over 20 years. So certainly not new to the industry, but just new to being in business. I also, having started a new business in September, I also do outsource some of my own functions. So accounting, which is not my strong point at all. So I've got experience really of both sides, both outsourcing myself and being an outsourced sales team for my clients.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rebecca. And actually, you've brought a point up that kind of takes me to my first question, really, which is, I think for a lot of businesses, it's kind of understanding what outsourcing actually is important. But I think it's really interesting that a lot of people are very comfortable outsourcing certain things. And you mentioned accountancy there is probably one of the most common examples of it. But are less likely or less comfortable to do it in other areas of the business. And maybe what you do is an example of that, Rebecca, in terms of sales. That's maybe generally an area people don't think about. So I'd be interested to know, I guess, guys, all your thoughts on kind of what is outsourcing for business and why you would do it, and just kind of a general overview of what you see as outsourcing. Can I go to you, Chris, first, if that's okay?
Yeah, I guess from the way I look at it is outsourcing takes the strain out of the business. It allows you to pass on bits of work that either you're not an expert in, or it's stuff that you haven't got time to do. So if we're talking about VAs and administration tasks, there's you can add that into there. But from a personal point of view, it's bringing in a project manager or somebody who's got that expertise in a certain area that you might not have within your business. And rather than trying to fudge your way through it, bring somebody in on a part-time basis to try and help you out.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. What is outsourcing to you? What does that mean?
So, from a perspective of my business and the people that I work with, I would say that there's different reasons that people would come to us. If I just give you a couple of examples. So the typical one that I hear all the time, and this tends to be potentially from the smaller businesses, is I hate sales. I hate picking up the phone. I freeze when I'm faced with a list of people to call. Interestingly, one of my clients rang me yesterday afternoon, and he'd put in a proposal 2 weeks ago to someone, and he just sent me this little email in saying, do you think you could just give this guy a call? So I rang him up and I said, we've sent you a proposal, and he went, yeah, brilliant, great, I really want to go ahead as soon as possible. So I rang the client up and I went, right, I've rung him. Yeah, he wants to go ahead as soon as possible. You better ring him. And he went, really? He said, I think sometimes when I send a proposal, if they don't ring me, then they're not interested. And I went, yeah, and they're sat there thinking, if you don't ring him, you're not interested. So sometimes, you know, it is people that just hate sales. Other times it's potentially a project. So it might be that, you know, they've got a tranche of data and they want that just cleansing, or they want it calling and looking within it, deeper into it for the opportunity. So it's those things where sometimes they don't have time. And also it's potentially things like a new product launch. So they might have an existing team working really well on an existing product, and that's all working really well. But then potentially a new product or service comes in and it needs a separate sort of sales function for it. So, yeah.
Perfect, Rebecca. Some great examples there. Thank you very much. Yeah, Sarah, so kind of what does outsourcing mean to you?
Well, I would try and describe it as it's where you don't have the time, the space, the want or need, the capacity or the expertise to do it yourself, or to have somebody do it for you in your current team. And where you don't have that, any of those options, that's when you can look outside for flexible support. Now, that flexible support can be a long-term contract. It can be a weekly, flexible, an hour a week. It could be somebody that you employ. It could, I mean, ultimately, there's lots of different options, but it is flexible, and it's usually somebody that you're not employing directly, that you're taking on board. So yeah, that's what my take would be on it.
Yeah, that's perfect, and I think some great examples. I mean, one thing I would like to potentially add to that as well is the financial side of it for people, and I'm not just talking about business. Actually, I'm talking personally here as well. So, a real basic example would be if you in your job or your business, you earn £20 an hour, but you can get a cleaner to come to your house who you pay £10 an hour. It makes sense to outsource that task essentially, and that's a real, relatively basic example. But I think that can be equated across business, because that's essentially what you do when you employ someone as well, don't you? You kind of outsource the task to someone in the group. There's a financial benefit. It's in a slightly different way, but I think there's that consideration as well.
It's a return on your investment. You've got to look at where your time is best spent, and I guess that if you have got the ability to earn more money or to have more time given back to you by outsourcing something, then it's definitely well worth investigating what your return on investment is going to be. And sometimes it will be about money, and sometimes it will be about time.
I was just going to say the same thing. With the larger organisations, you do get that firefighting thing, and if you've got a firefighting going on, you haven't got time to do this other stuff. It's trying to relieve that pressure a little bit, and like I say, it will save you money in the long run, because you don't need to have a full-time headcount for it.
No, absolutely. Great points, guys. And I guess the other side of outsourcing is that there's a lot of people who are reluctant to do it for a number of reasons. So I'd love to know kind of from your experiences and what's going on, where it's challenging, where it even doesn't work sometimes as well. So kind of, what are the negative sides? Because it's important that people understand both, doesn't it? So Rebecca, are you okay to kind of start on that?
Yes, I am. Yeah, sure. I mean, as I'm still relatively new to this, I haven't really come across any major sort of downsides to it on behalf of my clients. I think it's really important when you're going into this kind of a relationship to sort of set the expectations very clearly before you actually start. So I think that's one of the key things, because you can't go into this with one side having one set of expectations and the other side having another type of expectation. So with me, I would always sort of talk about, how many days we're going to do or what the objective is that they want to achieve. And then we've always got something ongoing to measure sort of our success by, and also to organise sort of regular catch-ups and check-ins, so that everybody's happy with the way the sort of relationship is progressing. Again, because I do some shorter term projects, then, it can have a lifespan. So for me, in my business as a company that is outsourced to, it's about getting that balance between doing the work for the clients, but always kind of making sure that we've got something in the pipeline. And I do wonder, with outsourcing, if potentially sometimes it can be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to a problem. So potentially a client could ring up and say, we've got this problem, we need you to sort of come in and start straight away, which is fine. But that doesn't help me with my longer term pipeline, because I'm not convinced that a business would look ahead in terms of sales and say, in 6 months' time, we're going to need a salesperson to come in. Maybe that's just to do with the current climate as well. But for me, that is a slight issue where, I can't look ahead and say I've got a booking in place in 6 months' time, because it's all sort of happening quite live, really, which is a bit nerve-wracking.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Sarah, what about you? Kind of, where do you think the challenges are?
I'm actually writing a presentation on this at the moment. So I think that there's a few elements here. As Rebecca said, it's really, really important to have some clarity on what you are outsourcing and why you're outsourcing, because unless you've got this, then ultimately you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. And communication is such a massive part of that. If you don't communicate with the people that you are, your external team, your remote team that you are working with on a regular basis, and have some clear guidelines, some clear expectations, some clear roles and responsibilities, it is going to go wrong. I can categorically tell you that. The other thing is that outsourcing is, it is, you can't outsource the management of your business and the thinking of your business. You can only outsource the implementation and the doing. So ultimately, you do have to play a part as the business owner, as the person doing the outsourcing. You still have to play that part and be there, because ultimately the business is you, and that is really, really important. And the final point that I will try and succinctly make is, when you've decided who you're going to outsource to, and you've done your due diligence, and you found somebody that you think you're going to work well with, and you've got your clear responsibilities and roles, etc., try not to micromanage, because I'll tell you what, that's the death of anything. If you micromanage, there should be no need for that to happen if all those other things have been clearly laid out beforehand.
Yeah, there's some great points, and I did smile a bit, Rebecca, when you made the point about like the knee-jerk reaction, because Sarah will probably recollect, maybe back in November, I was having a bad week or so with about 1 million tasks to do, and I just basically emailed Sarah and said, "Please help! I need help. I don't know what I'm doing." So that was my kind of knee-jerk reaction to it, but it kind of started the whole process. Anyway, Chris, obviously you're very much involved in the kind of operational side of things. You get to see maybe things that have gone over a longer period of time. So it'd be interesting to know, when you've seen the challenges and the things that haven't gone particularly great for outsourcing.
Yeah, I mean, I've having worked in operations, I've also seen where it can go drastically wrong as well. You have to, like Sarah said, you've got to get the right fit for the business. And outsourcers have got their own niches, their own standards. Some are better than others. It's it's like anything in the maybe a controversial comment to make, but that some consultants are better than others, and some project managers are better than others. Some are more organised than others. It's finding that right person that's going to fit your business, and from looking at it from the outside, it's just treat them as a bit, to a certain degree, as a member of staff when you come to talking to them in terms of interviewing them and things like that. And I've come across it where when we're bringing out an outsourcer in, and that isn't the right fit for the business, and it causes so many problems if you don't have that right fit, because they come in with the wrong. They're looking at one thing and you're looking at something else, and it doesn't quite work. But there's ways where it can work if you get it right, and just by making sure, like Sarah says, making sure you've got a set idea of what you want, but at the same time, if you're bringing expertise in, they're going to have ideas as well. So use that expertise because you might find something that's even better than what you currently have.
I think that's a fantastic point, Chris. And I kind of going back to you actually, and you mentioned there about where it's worked well and not. I'm sure you've kind of helped people implement effective outsourcing. Have you kind of got any examples that you can maybe think of, without giving any details away, but examples of when it's worked?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of work that I was doing last year for a client, and I essentially became their in-house continual improvement manager, rather than them bringing one in full time. I was working a couple of days a week for them, and instead of doing like extensive meeting, solution finding meetings, what we did instead was we actually broke it out over several weeks, doing half a day at a time. It allowed them to carry on with what they were doing because they could still crack on with business as usual. I was managing all from a project point of view, so I was making sure all the meetings were in place and that we were doing all the educational pieces and the training. And it actually it made a massive difference to their business because they were able to carry on what they were doing, but it was being managed by somebody as well at the same time, and that actually led on to doing other projects as well. So they managed to have me doing other different projects to take it away from their operations team, which it just saved them a lot of pressure, and knowing that somebody was, even though I was from outside the business, I still treat it like my own. I still look after it as if it's my own business, my own project, and become a partner of that. And that's how we, at the end of the day, we gain work back.
That's great. That's great, Chris. Thank you, Rebecca. I'd just like to ask you something actually about. So I think what you probably hopefully agree with me is it's outsourcing sales is not a common thing that businesses do. They might have historically done parts of it, maybe the telesales side of it, lead generation, but the whole sales process. So do you think there's any particular types of businesses where whether it's industries or size or whatever it might be, that it works better for than others? I know you've been quite early days into it, but from what you've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, it is early days, and I've spent some time over Christmas. That's that awful cliche, working on my business, not in my business. But thinking about this and who's my target market, and I have kind of narrowed it down quite, I think, to a quite specific market really, which is really businesses. For me, it's businesses where they're at the stage where the business owner has been doing sales themselves, and then they've got to the stage where they're thinking we probably actually do need to recruit someone now to do sales because their time is better spent doing something else. And so they go out into the market and they look for a salesperson, and they realize that in order to get a really sort of a good salesperson, then they're going to be looking at sort of £50,000-60,000. On top of that, they've then got to write the job description, manage them, motivate them, monitor them, potentially coach them and encourage them. And then you've got all that other sort of outside, you've got holiday pay, sick pay, and it just becomes very expensive. So I think that though that is possibly my target market, is that sort of business that is, you know, looking to recruit their first salesperson, and maybe they're not just quite ready yet. So we could sort of take that to the next level, and then from there on, they can then decide whether they're ready to employ a full-blown sales team, really.
Yeah, so they're at that point where they're grown enough. I guess the work that needs to be done, there's enough work there for a salesperson, but maybe the numbers and the finance don't quite stack up yet, and it's kind of that, I guess,
or even, you know, perhaps the requirements of their business don't warrant it. So, you know, obviously, if you're employing someone on a salary of sort of 40,000, you would potentially want that to at least, you know, recoup you 80,000. Well, maybe you only need to increase your sales by 15,000. So when you sort of balance it out, the beauty of us is we don't come full time necessarily. So, you know, you can just take us for, say, 2 days a month. And within those 2 days a month, we might be able to generate the additional business that you actually need to grow in line with how you want to grow. Because not every business is looking to sort of double turnover year on year. So it could just be that you only need somebody part-time. And I don't think that typically, I don't think that people. Sorry, I've lost my thread there. I just saw.
Oh, I've lost Rebecca a bit there. While we're doing, I'll go back to you, Sarah. Actually, so I was going to ask you about the kind of business owners. One of the things that maybe come to you for is this kind of they've got a to-do list that they're struggling with and they need some help with. Do you think they may be coming with that attitude rather than the looking at the bigger picture and getting things right?
Absolutely. I think it is it's a challenge for business owners. Ultimately, you start your business because it's something that you have a passion about, but you doing what you have a passion about and running a business are two very different things. Often when people start a business, they are doing everything themselves, and they do it in the way that they have only ever known how to do it in the past. And that might be from their employed background. For example, they might have been an employee in a business that's inspired them to then go and start their own business, but they might not necessarily have the tools at their fingertips to be able to know how to build things, you know, in a different way. I think it can be very short-sighted just to say, I need somebody to do X, Y, Z for me, because ultimately, as you're growing quickly, you get to the point where you reach a ceiling, and you know you can't bypass that. You can't break through that until you've put some key foundations in place. And a lot of business owners miss that point, and they get to the point where they're too busy and it's too stressful to even consider just throwing things at other people. And if they do throw things at other people, they're not doing it in a way that's effective or productive or efficient. And often that's when relationships will break down as well, because they're not communicating clearly. They haven't got the foundations in place, and they haven't got a vehicle in which to travel together to get to that next point of growth. I think that's probably the best way that I can describe it. So yes, building those foundations and putting some processes and checklists and having something to underpin all that is absolutely vital, and probably should be done at an earlier stage than most people do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Good to have you back, Rebecca. And I know a little bit of Wi-Fi problem. I think everyone understands us, but a lot of people are working from home now, so the Wi-Fi is interesting. So don't worry about that. We've got most of the points anyway, which is great. So when we consider
anyone from Virgin's listening, can you sort it out, please?
So I think as we move forward, obviously, what's happened in the last year or so, I think businesses are going to be, for the next couple of years, very conservative in terms of what they do, in terms of getting people on board and employing new people. How do you think that will kind of affect the whole outsourcing world as we move forward, especially in the next couple of years? We'll come to you, Rebecca, while your Wi-Fi is working. So how do you think it'll all kind of work out in the next couple of years?
Well, since I launched, I have not been short of inquiries at all. And really, I would like to think that going forward, that this could be the future. I think working remotely is definitely the future. And so alongside working remotely could go outsourcing a lot more. more than that, I can't speak for every industry, but you know, I would always outsource my accounting because it's something I'm really not good at. Once I've got a bit more sort of traction in the business, I will definitely outsource a lot more of my administration. That's the sort of thing I'm having to do myself at the moment, evenings and weekends. But certainly with sales, I feel potentially I've hit on something, and hopefully it will continue to grow.
No, absolutely, Rebecca. Chris, what about for you? Kind of, how do you see things going in the next couple of years?
Well, I see a lot more outsourcing is potentially going to happen. I think the good thing about outsourcing is the fact that there's not as big a commitment. So with everything that's going on at the moment, you know, if I can use myself as an example for that, is if something happens like full lockdown, there is a less there's not as much commitment there. So you can say, well, actually, we need to shelve these projects for now. It happens. All right, the outsourcer gets a little bit of a sort of having to be let go on a short period, but at least the business, there isn't as much commitment there, and they can just say, right, we'll shelve it for now, and we'll park it and bring you back in next time it happens, rather than having to think about furlough, think about taking other people on. Do they bring somebody in? Do they have to make people redundant? It adds a little bit of a dynamic to it, and I think there's a lot of businesses out there possibly don't know they can do it. And there's an education piece for all of us outsourcers to be able to go and say, well, actually, do you realise that this could be more convenient for you? And certainly in the short term, that might be the case.
Absolutely. And Sarah?
I think it's just becoming more and more important for people to understand that there's flexible options out there. You know, as Chris said, whilst it's frustrating if a client's business is impacted to the degree that it then impacts you as the person assisting them, at the end of the day, that's one of the highs and lows of being an outsourcer, you know, being somebody that supplies those services. But from a business owner perspective, I think it's really key that, you know, that flexibility is there for them, and, you know, they've got those options. I think it doesn't have to be set in stone that you're doing something, you know, for forever. It could be a day a month, it could be a day a week, it could be an hour a week, and that's the beauty of it. And most freelancers, or most people that are providing service business, will be flexible in that approach as well, because that's just the way that they work.
That was perfect. And I've got one final question for all of you, really, and we'll kind of go around if that's all right. And I'm going to start with you, Rebecca, because I know the Wi-Fi problems. If people are watching this and they haven't really outsourced things before, but from your experience of outsourcing and being the person who outsources, what advice would you give them? What questions should they ask? Which things should get in place before they go down that process?
I'm really sorry, I missed like 90% of that. It's just gone again. Oh, so briefly, it's frozen again.
Right, I'll come to you, Sarah, if that's okay. I'll come back to you. So, like I said, what advice would you give someone who's looking to outsource? You know, what kind of questions do they need to ask? What kind of things do they need to get in place?
Okay, so first of all, be clear on what and why you're outsourcing. That's key. When you're looking to find somebody, be specific. Don't just go into Facebook groups and say, I'm looking for a VA, for example, because virtual assistant is a title I'm actually not very keen on. But the truth is, it is somebody who provides those virtual services to you. But every single person will have a different area of expertise. So be very specific about what you want. That way, that at least you can respond to the responses that you get will be much more relevant to you and your business. Please make sure you get a contract with anybody that you work with. It's vitally important. No matter how well you think you're going to get on with somebody, no matter what what testimonials they have, or recommendations, you just don't know if something's going to go wrong. So please make sure a contract is signed on both sides. And I think that's probably it. It's about being clear, knowing why you're doing it. Ask for recommendations from people, but be clear on what exactly you're looking for.
That's great. Chris, how about you?
I guess it's similar to what I said before. There's no harm in and I think as outsourcers we'd expect it as well, is interviewing it like you would an employee. You've got to find the right person to fit your business, and that while somebody's been in operations management for one type of thing, they might not be in. Similar with project management, you're not going to bring an IT project manager in to manage a moval, a site closure or something like that. So have a real think about what type of outsourcing you actually need, and like Sarah said, make it clear. This is, in your mind, this is what you want, and is that person capable of delivering it for you? Some are more adaptable than others, which is great. And then but also use their experience, use their knowledge, use their talents to improve on that further, because it's possible. We may know something that you might not have already thought about in the first place. Because like I say, we all have our own niches depending on what industry we've come out of. So yeah, just put some real thought into the people you actually utilize as outsourcers.
Can I just add to that whilst you might be, in inverted commas, interviewing for somebody to take on a particular role within your business, however big or small that might be, ultimately you also, it's not necessarily quite the same as a job interview, in so much that the person that you're interviewing is also running a small business themselves. So be true, be honest, come across as you, because if you come across as somebody who demands perfection, the person that you're interviewing might not want to work with you either, and actually that's going to go off to a really bad start if you then take them on. So just be yourself. It's got to be the right fit both ways.
I would absolutely agree with both those, and just exactly along the same lines really, is that the people that you're going to be outsourcing to have a lot of experience of outsourcing. So, you can use them to sort of cover any questions. In a way, it's almost sort of use their expertise and put together the brief almost together. Because if you're new to outsourcing, you might know what the objectives of the role are and what you want to achieve from it, but you might not be fully au fait with kind of how outsourcing actually works. So I would use the people that you're talking to and discussing it with to kind of really pick up on that information as well.
So I was going to add to that. One of the things I do is do a project charter. So if I'm going in to do a project, I'll say, right, okay, well, this is where you are now. Where you are now, where do we want to be, and actually make sure that is what we're focusing on, rather than just going in and going, oh, right, okay. You actually set a chart, like a proper charter of exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to get there.
That's fantastic, guys. Thank you very much. So yeah, thank you really for your time and kind of some great bits of information there. All of you are tagged into this on social media, so if anyone wants to get a hold of any of you, they can do through those means. If for whatever reason you can't find Sarah, Chris, or Rebecca, just let me or anyone in Northern Affinity know, and we can put you in contact. Yeah, and really appreciate your time, and yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Thank you.